All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. Look at for today's show, I realize I might ruffle a little bit of feathers because it's not something that gets talked about often, and I find myself very involved in the spiritual and self-help community in a lot of ways. So if it pushes your buttons, that's a good thing. But I want to talk about today the addiction to self-help. And I think why, in a lot of ways, can actually be very paradoxical in terms of what it is that we're actually trying to do, and that's grow and better ourselves and become the fullest version of who we are, right? Because the problem with self-help is it forms this idea when we really start engaging in spiritual work, deep inner work under the guise of self-help that we are looking for a destination, that we are trying to become something that we are not. And we have to do this practice, this meditation, embody this discipline in order to be worthy of being whole. When the reality is, we are already whole. We are already enough. We are already worthy of love, right? And it's very paradoxical that self-help can actually put us into a state of seeking and chasing worthiness through the disciplines themselves when we're unconscious about it. Right. And I'm going to dive deep into the factors of this and kind of how this develops and what to look for, because obviously it's important to reflect, it's important to grow, it's important to want to better ourselves. But I found that growth culture has a tendency to not question the motivating force behind it. And we are really taught that wanting to improve is inherently virtuous. And I think that is true in many aspects, but the motive matters more than the method does. And I think too often we get caught up in the method as opposed to the motive behind why we're seeking to improve, right? If it's growth that's rooted in curiosity or wonder or joy, then that's going to expand us. It's going to allow us to grow, right? If we are consciously connected with who we are on a deeper level and we understand that we are worthy of love and that we don't need to seek or do anything to be worthy and to be enough, right? Then we can really grow and explore a lot of these self-help topics in a positive way. But when the growth itself is rooted in fear, it's going to quietly reinforce the belief that the present self is unacceptable. And that is the trap that so many people in the self-help community find themselves in. And this community really markets it and commoditizes that trap, often unconsciously. I don't want to sit here and say that self-help people are trying to profit off of the idea that you are somehow unworthy or broken. I think a lot of people genuinely are trying to offer solutions. So I'm not trying to throw the whole self-help community under the bus with this episode. It's not my intention, because I think a lot of these things, again, are made with good intention. But we need to be very conscious ourselves on how we're engaging in a self-reflective and self-help process, and to be careful not to continually outsource our self-worth in the present moment to some sort of future idea of who we're supposed to become. Right. And that's the point of this episode. That's the point of this episode. Growth is meant to liberate, but for many, it ends up becoming a delay mechanism and something we put off. And it's not because we don't want to heal, but it's because healing would require an arrival, and that almost stops the chasing in the self-help community itself, and it makes a lot of it obsolete, actually. We might not have a huge self-help market if people weren't chasing and seeking something. So, and arrival means no longer having to having an excuse, essentially, or having to um, come up with a reason why we withhold love from ourselves in the first place, or worthiness in the first place. So, and I think this is where the addiction begins. We're really filling that void and putting our purpose into something that is greater than the individual self in a way that we lose ourselves. Um, so that's going to be that's the general synopsis. If you're a fan of the show, you can subscribe whatever platform you're on: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Uh, Substack. I haven't been posting on Substack too much, but I got a lot of new stuff up on YouTube, doing a lot of subliminal affirmations, and I'll probably talk about subliminal affirmations a little bit later in the episode. But I've been putting a lot of them up on YouTube. Reprogram your mind. It's important. You know, a lot of meditation practices, we focus on the conscious mind and conscious thought, but how much time are you putting to rewiring and rerouting the source of your conscious thought? It's important. So you can go to my YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube watching this, well, hey, go watch some of the subliminal affirmations. I'm going to be putting plenty up. If you ever have suggestions on what you want me to look at, by all means, send them in. Even if you want to book a one-on-one reading with me, start reading, the link to do so is in the episode show notes below. And also a fitness consultation, iron and ether. That is in the description below. I'll be putting out a few programs soon that you can just buy directly with specific intents behind the programs if you are interested in that type of direction. A one-on-one consultation, you get your own personal program, but you can always just buy a program outright. And obviously, it has to be a bit more general if you're just selling a program. But I'm going to try and make it as spiritually rooted and also widely applicable. So, but also individualized and offering individualized tips within that program, because realistically, you're meant to make it your own. And this is something I want to talk about in this podcast. Anytime that you're working with me, my goal is not to have you as a long-term client. Like, I love working with people and the people I give readings to regularly. And like, I enjoy it. But my goal for anything that I'm offering is for you to become self-sufficient to where you don't need me. Yeah, check in. I'll offer to give you advice or give you a reading or give you a consultation, write up a program, whatever it may be. But the goal is that you don't need me. Right. And in the self-help community in particular, and this is something I'm going to talk about a little later in the episode, a little more in depth. They get you in with this, like, you need this practice, or you need my services, or you need my coaching, right? Because you're not whole as you are. I'm telling you right now, you already are whole as you are. And what I'm offering, you probably don't need, but I mean, it can give you insight. You know, I go to, like, for example, I book readings with Latau every once in a while, and I find it very beneficial, very helpful. Do I need those readings? No, I'd be just fine. Like, but it gives me a good perspective. And so I take it in and and apply it. And that's really the point of any service that I'm offering as well. So keep that in mind. It's not I'm not selling you on need here. And I realize maybe that makes me a shitty marketer in a sense. But I'm never gonna tell you that you need me, because you don't. You don't even need this podcast. You already know the truth if you sit with yourself and you're still, right? I would challenge you at some point, like if you listen to podcasts in the car, for example, take a couple drives where you're just in silence. Notice your surroundings. Be present. That's really what it's all about. I do that, right? I do that often. Drive in silence, very peaceful. And it's because I'm comfortable sitting with myself and letting my mind wander, or noticing what's all around. I think it's a beautiful thing to do. Just tune into your perception, if you will. Um, so that's pretty good for ad lib. I don't got much else. You can buy my poetry book, Seasons of Becoming. It is still available. Follow me on the socials, and you can also donate to the show directly. Got PayPal and buy me a coffee. I like coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee, actually. Cold brew, if anybody buy me a coffee directly. But buy me a coffee link, obviously that's like a monetary donation. But if you tell me to go buy coffee with it, I probably will. So if you want to donate in that way, it's all in the episode show notes. I appreciate the contributions and the support for the show. Because I got some people who put up a podcast. Don't matter what it's about, people. There's some people who tune in. So shout out to you. If that's you, thank you. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Here's a question I want to pose. Diving back into the topic. What do you believe would be demanded of you if you finally stopped working on yourself? Like, what perception do you think people would have of you? Like sit and reflect on that. Like if you stopped working on yourself and you just accepted you as you are right now, what do you think is going to be demanded of you? Or what perception are people going to hold? What kind of feeling does that invoke internally? Right? It's kind of a scary thought, isn't it? And I asked that for myself, and it's like, huh, I'm not entirely sure. It's a deep question. It's a deep question, but I think it's an important question. If we could sit and accept ourselves fully in the present moment with all our flaws, all our insecurities, everything that's present, and just say, ah, this is it right here. This is who I am. It's kind of a scary thought, isn't it? Now, obviously, it's important to grow. It's important to want to be a better person. And when we notice something about ourselves, it's important to hold ourselves accountable, right? But the point that I'm making in this episode is that growth has the idea of needing to grow, it tends to turn into a compulsion, right? I think healthy growth has its own natural rhythm when we're living in tune with the true essence of who we are, and it kind of flows, right? You're able to go through life and you're able to recognize something when it comes up, and you can sit with it and you can work with it, but as you're not obsessing over it, right? The more compulsive growth and this obsession, it really has like a sense of urgency, like we need to fix something now. And really that urgency just comes from fear. It's a fear of stagnation, maybe a fear of being ordinary or not being enough. Or even just the fear of confronting the idea that nothing actually is wrong with you and nothing ever was wrong with you, right? So many people's identities are rooted in this belief that they are not enough, or that they are not worthy, or that their trauma somehow makes them lesser than. Right? Especially within the spiritual community, there's so many people who view themselves as less than. And they're doing all these things to empower themselves and saying, I am powerful, I am this, I am that. Well, why do you even need to say that? Do you actually like believe that on like a deep soul level? And there's gonna be a lot of people who hear that and they're like, oh no, fuck you. Like, I don't want to hear like you're wrong. I say that because I'm that thing. Like, cool, but why do you need to keep reminding yourself that? Because at the unconscious level, you probably don't believe it if you need to tell yourself that all the time. At least not right now. And that's all right if that's where you're at. But at least acknowledge it, because the second you acknowledge it, it becomes a lot easier to deal with the truth in front of you. This is my belief system. This is where it's at. And maybe my belief system is wrong, right? We lie to ourselves so often. How many people say affirmations as a lie at first? And eventually they feel like truth. And the point with like the subliminal affirmation is you don't actually even hear it and you just sit and you're in stillness, present with what is, and eventually it rewires the thoughts and the program and the nervous system, right? But this compulsive growth that I'm talking about, it really shows up as like a constant consumption of self-help, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who will go on like social media, for example, and I've been guilty of this at times, to where you're constantly fed spiritual content or growth content or healing content. And it's like you get your fix that you're thinking about these things, but it reinforces the subconscious belief that somehow you have urgent things that you need to address, right? And maybe there's like this inability to like rest and relax without feeling some sort of guilt. And I can speak to myself in that sense where I always want to be working on something. And I have had to have the conversations like, is it because I'm trying to prove something? And at least where I'm at right now, I don't have anything I need to prove. I'm creating and working all the time because I enjoy creating and working all the time. Right? There's a big difference. Like if you like think about the practices and the things that you do on a daily basis, right? And how you spend your time. Are you doing those things because you enjoy them? Or are you doing them because there's some internal level of guilt that's telling you you need to work on these things? You are not like you are not good enough. You need to level up, right? And it's again, it's a good self-reflective question. Like if you're going out and you're just putting in work, like you're creating shit and you're making things and you're living your life and you're busy because you got all these obligations and like but you know who you are, like that's way different than doing things out of a feeling of obligation to some sort of false belief about yourself, right? And your identity can really become fused with the terms discipline, healing, or self-mastery. And the thing is, the spiritual language is so powerful, right? It's very attractive, it's very seductive. So when we're using it, we need to be very conscious about the motivation behind its usage because we can trick ourselves so easily, right? Growth has a tendency to become self-surveillance. And you really need it's important to have an inner voice and it's important to be mindful, right? But there's points where your inner voice is going to sound less like wisdom and it's going to sound more like a performance review, right? Because what happens if you don't meet your standard one day? How are you treating yourself? What feelings are you getting? Like there is no point in your life right now where if you're sitting here and listening to this, where you should feel shame about who you are, or what you feel like you haven't done, or what you're not working on right now. Maybe accept the fact that you need a rest from something. That's cool. Like we all do at points. We all have times where we need to pull back and rest. You need to have an inner dialogue with yourself that is rooted in grace and compassion and love for who you are, because then you're able to really attend to your needs. All right. You can get spiritual burnout from doing all this shit, right? You kind of almost like lose your deeply rooted spiritual knowing and identity, and you become this sort of just project that you're trying to perfect. But the problem with that is there is no end. There's no end to growth. And that's why you got to let it come organically. You can't force, like, I mean, there's a time and a place, and you know when that time and place is to really look at yourself under the microscope, right? If you're feeling called to create and to write and to self-reflect, then do those things. But do it out of the knowing that you are in fact worthy. Like you should be creating, you should be reflecting, right? It's such a delicate balance and it's such a fine line. And I even sit here and question right now, like, am I able to articulate this well enough for people to understand the difference here? Right? Because on one hand, I tell you to do these things, but on the other hand, I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't do these things if you're doing them the wrong way. And you're reinforcing negative belief patterns, right? So you kind of got to have a judgment day with yourself in a sense of looking at your true motivations and being honest with yourself. Growth that doesn't allow rest is not expansion. It's really just your anxiety that you're dressing up as discipline and calling self-mastery. Because what is it that happens to your body when you consider doing nothing to improve yourself? Like if you want to take the whole day off from your spiritual practice, right? And I was like this for a while where if I didn't like meditate or something, I would feel guilty about it. Or if if I don't go to the gym, I feel guilty about it, right? And I'm at the point where if that shit happens, it happens. It is what it is. I'm not gonna sit here and beat myself up over it because I didn't do it. Whatever. All right, I'll go. I'm disciplined enough to where I know I'll do what I need to do when I do it. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm gonna go take 2 weeks off from the gym because I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. I'll work it in because that's just that's important to me. But if I did go and take 2 weeks off, it's not a reflection of my character, of who I am. Doesn't make me unworthy of love. Doesn't make me unworthy of joy. So there's a big difference. I would probably feel a little bit of guilt, but that's because I'm not holding myself to the standard that I have for myself in terms of keeping myself disciplined. But that's not because I don't love myself. It's because I love myself. It's because I'm willing to hold myself to that standard. You see, there's a difference. There's a difference. And it's such a fine line and a delicate balance. Like, because who are you without all of these practices, all of these routines, or the self-concept as somebody who is working on themselves? Right? You don't need to work on yourself. You just need to be yourself. Right? And as you're being yourself, you will naturally do the things that you gravitate towards. right? For me, that would be doing meditation and going to the gym and creating and writing and doing podcasts and exploring and creating. That's just what I like to do. That's how I enjoy spending my time. I don't sit here, I'm not sacrificing like watching a TV show to do a podcast because I don't fucking watch TV. You know what I mean? Like, what else would I do? You know what I genuinely don't know. Like, there's other things I could do, but there isn't anything that I'd rather do right now. I'm doing the podcast because I want to, because I enjoy doing it. It's not like if I don't do it, I'm gonna feel ashamed about myself. I'll just say, "Oh, you didn't do that. Well, okay, whatever. It is what it is. You'll do it some other time if you're meant to." There's a big difference. There's a huge difference. And like, let's say you were doing a podcast and you were gonna do it. Oh, we're gonna do it, and then you just decide not to, and you feel this deeply rooted shame and guilt. Like, what standard are you holding yourself to here? Is it really the end of the world? That doesn't reflect who you are. What's the point? What's the big deal? It's just a fucking podcast. Who cares? Like, you know? And that can be said about anything. It's the same with the gym. All right. If I was gonna go work out right now instead of do this podcast, or that was the plan, and then so then I just, I had some, it ended up being a crazy day or whatever it might be. Like, I just my body's telling me I can't go. Okay, the body told me I can't go. It is what it is. Am I gonna beat myself up over it? No. Whatever. Right. It's silly. It's silly the type of dialogue and beliefs that we have about ourselves when we're entrapped in this growth mindset. And I say that with for all audio listeners with air quotations, growth mindset, because that's not a growth mindset. That is a mindset that is fueled in self-loathing and self-hatred, that you're using the ideas of discipline to run from your self-loathing and self-hatred by telling yourself that you're working on yourself, right? And maybe you're crafting this image, but what's the motivation for the image? Dude, you don't need an image if you actually love yourself. You just are who you are, right? So there's a big difference. Your identity, you need to almost rid yourself of the concept of identity. And Ram Dass talks about this a lot. You need like just being nobody, being you. Like, get rid of the idea you need to impress anybody. Get rid of the idea you need to impress yourself. What the fuck? Like, what's the point of that? What's the point of that? It's so simple at the end of the day, but because the mind is so caught up in this need to perform and this need to survive and these like social standards and hierarchies, right? We get so caught in the perceptions and the ideas that other people have about us and the ideas we have about ourselves that we really lose touch with the plot here. That at the end of the day, life is meant to be experienced, lived, and enjoyed. And maybe that sounds a little hedonistic in some aspects. It's meant to be fulfilling. Let me put it a little deeper. It's meant to be fulfilling, right? And you're meant to do things that are fulfilling. This is not meant to be just a pleasure-seeking experience. I'm not telling you to just go like bang hookers and take drugs, right? I mean, you could. Good luck. I don't think you're going to get much meaning from it. But you're meant to do things that are fulfilling. You're not meant to question yourself on that. The second the mind starts going and you have an internal debate is the second you lose, because your brain is going to naturally gravitate towards the safe option, right? And I think in the self-help space, people really do use spirituality as a mask. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing. I know that's like a lingo word nowadays, same with spiritual narcissism. But like I was saying, the spiritual language is powerful, man. And that's why it's very dangerous when it's misused. Spiritual bypassing doesn't actually look like denial. It looks like you're taking these things head on, like you talk about it. But it looks like interpretation without embodiment, right? You're interpreting and the mind is going, but you're not actually embodying the concepts that you're talking about, right? You can intellectualize love, you can intellectualize self-worth, you can intellectualize all of these different higher vibrational topics, but if you are actually living in a fear dissident state, right? And the only time you're actually feeling a high vibration is when you're talking about it. What about the 99% the rest of your day, right? Are you actually living that way? Probably not. Probably not. Because when you're actually embodying it, you don't really need to talk about it. To be honest with you, you don't really need, it doesn't really matter. You're just kind of living it and you're being it. And if somebody brings it in, you can share about it and you can talk about what you're doing and you can share about your experiences, but you don't really need reassurance. So you don't bring it up. That's why I think some of the most deeply rooted spiritual people, they don't really talk about spirituality. They don't really care. They don't need to. They're just being them. And they share they offer a helping hand when it's needed, but they don't put spirituality in your face by any means. By any means. Uh, I think spiritual bypassing, what it really looks like is this is such a big one when pain becomes a lesson before it becomes a feeling. How many people intellectualize their pain? Oh, this heartbreak is some fucking lesson. Like, I've done that done that. And maybe that's a way to like initially cope, but how long is it a lesson before you actually sit and you just feel it and you don't even label it? The second you label it, it becomes something that it's not. Because every experience is unique, every pain is unique, every heartbreak is unique. Every sensation in your body is unique and deeper than the language that we provide for it. So as soon as you attach a label to it, you are lessening it in the sense that you are not able to look at it fully, right? Your grief, your hardship, it becomes a frequency issue. Oh, I'm not vibrating at a higher point because I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling sadness. The fuck are you talking about? Genuinely, a frequency issue. You're not vibrating high enough? Really? You, if anything, you're bringing yourself lower because you are lessening the human experience. You need to sit in the grief. You need to sit in the shadow. You need to sit in the pain because all you're doing by talking about trying to come up here and do this and do that and like, oh yeah, this is a good old lesson for me. What the fuck are you doing? You're running from the pain. Sit in it, alchemize it, feel it, embody it, and learn from it, and then let that shit go. Let that shit go. The more you're intellectualizing it, the more you're letting it drag you down and you're running from it unconsciously, right? And it's interesting because anger is another big one. Like people can't seem to sit in anger. They don't try to understand anger. They just feel like they need to transcend it. They need to get rid of it instead of, well, what's causing the anger? I notice at points I get angry. I do. I'm a very calm person, but I get fucking angry. Of course, everybody gets angry once in a while. But it's a little less common for me than like grief or sadness, for example. But when I get angry, I really notice it. I really sit in it. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Why am I so pissed? Like, why? What is there really to be angry about? Like, where is this actually coming from? And usually the anger is rooted for me in grief or sorrow or something didn't like meet my expectation or somebody didn't meet my expectation. Right. So I might get angry about it. But it's not something to run from. Like if you're angry, feel it. Don't punch a hole in your wall. Don't take it out on other people. Because then that's another form of bypassing it, trying to transcend it and say, oh, these other people are making me angry. Well, maybe, but it's your reaction. So own it. Like don't run from it. Take conscious ownership of every single thing that you feel in your body. Genuinely. And don't attach any other person. Don't attach any other label. I don't care what the stories are. I don't care what things they have done in the past. Like, get rid of all those stories because they're holding you back. You need to sit with what you feel and you need to figure it out for yourself. There isn't anybody else who's going to be able to do it for you. I don't care what any self-help guru says. I don't care what any workbook says. I don't care what any spiritual teacher says. They can give the ultimate teaching is to come back to yourself. The ultimate teaching is to come back to yourself. And maybe in a workbook, it'll tell you how to do that, right? Maybe a teacher will tell you how to do that, right? There's practices you can learn. I'm not saying don't go to these people or don't use these things, but stop outsourcing your healing and your growth to people who do not have your best interest in mind or can't solve the problem for you. You need to be the most reliable person in your own life for yourself first, right? The irony is that many people doing deep work in quote unquote deep work, I would say, they are deeply disconnected from their actual emotional experience. They label it as this when it is really that. Because as soon as you attach labels to it, you don't understand it. Just sit in it and notice it. Notice the sensations. Notice the emotions. Notice how tense it makes your body. Notice what type of reactions you have internally. Maybe you need to cry. Maybe you just need, maybe it hurts. Maybe it fucking hurts. Maybe you need to write about it. Try and describe the sensations, but don't attach a label to it. You don't even always need to understand it. Sometimes you just need to feel it. And once you're able to do that, it lessens its hold over you. And every emotion, every sensation, every trauma has different time periods, if you will. Like you can't just sit here and say, I'm going to sit with this for 5 minutes and then say it's over. No, you sit with it every time it comes up. This is an ongoing practice, but you don't lose your center and you don't lose your sense of identity because it comes up. That's the big problem. Like, it's like you do all that in the self-help. It's like, oh, I'm going to transcend this. And then the next time it comes up, you feel this sense of shame. You feel this like, oh shit, why is this back? I was just working through this in my little self-help book. And I just wrote about this. Why is it back again? And so then you feel like you need more. You got to do more work. No, the work is to sit in it and to process it and feel it internally instead of needing to try and understand it on an intellectual level. Right? That's really what it's about. And when you're able to sit in the emotions and just embrace it for what it is, it loses its hold. It loses its power. It's like it's a devil that's on your shoulder. And as soon as you just embrace it, this is a part of me. I don't even need to, I don't necessarily need to sacrifice. I don't need to let it go. It's just here, right? I'm not going to run from it. It's like you take the chains off and you're free. I promise you, it's that simple. Like, you may not believe me. You may not believe me because it sounds too simple. Because the self-help community has taught us that inner work is some long, strenuous, exhausting process. And it's not always fun. It's not always easy to sit with yourself. There's a reason people don't. Your mind might go fucking crazy in some aspects, especially when you first start. But that's why it's important to keep doing it because it gets easier and it becomes more of a natural flow. And when something comes up, you can say, anger. Or maybe you say, anger. Right? And it's anger. It just might not be calm. But you're able to recognize it and take that step back. Right? Any spirituality that cannot sit with anger, that cannot deal with grief or confusion, it is not wisdom. It is avoidance with a fancy vocabulary. And that's gonna fucking sting for some people. It's avoidance wrapped up in all these spiritual terms. And I'm not saying the spiritual aspects of your life aren't real and the experiences you have aren't real, but are you doing the inner work, really, if you can't handle those emotions without projecting them and blaming? Like all of it's your own. There's not a single other person in this world who should be able to trigger you to the point where you lose total control. Right? Because there's people that could say something to me and it might bother me, but like within 5 or 10 minutes, I guarantee you, like it might, if somebody says something bad enough, I might not fucking talk to them again. I might be like, all right, well, fuck you. I'm done. I don't need to deal with this. You set firm boundaries for yourself so you don't have to continually be put through the ringer of people who are going to disrespect you. But at the same time, that's other people's stuff. It's not my problem. I know who I am. I know I have things I can work on and improve upon and become a better person in. I'm not perfect in my actions. I'm not even perfect in my intentions. To be totally honest, I try to be, but I'm not. We're all human. So, but I don't let people make me lose my center. That's something I've worked very hard on. And it's taken time and it's taken practice and and it hasn't been from a fucking self-help guru. It's from just acknowledging what's present over and over and over again. That's the art of meditation. That's the art of meditation they don't teach you. They try and teach it, but it's beyond words. You have to experience it and live it and embrace it. All right. So this is a long journey. Right. Don't listen to this. The point of this is don't listen to this and feel shame because it goes against exactly what I'm talking about here. You're not meant to listen to this and feel shame about yourself or whatever you're doing. Embrace where you're at. You're right where you need to be. I think my own addiction to self-help in the past was kind of necessary. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of what not to do. I can sit here and talk about this having lived it. You know what I mean? So all of the experiences we have, I think, are necessary for that sense. But you got to recognize that your nervous system is always going to know the truth. Like, especially, I can speak from the relationship standpoint, right? I always thought that like I needed to like bleed and be hurt in order to be like loved or seen or recognized. So I'd let fucking women put me through the ringer, treat me like absolute shit, like terribly. And I would do it to myself. Like I would allow it because I thought that was how I was being like seen. What a terrible way to live life. Let me tell you, like, let me tell you, and my nervous system would go crazy. I'd be anxious and like, but I thought it was passion. I thought that was like the love. I thought that was the feeling of like reciprocity when I was just fucking on edge because I thought they were going to hurt me. And I didn't know that. I didn't recognize that. Right. So it's taken a lot of work for me to develop a healthy enough relationship with myself and trust enough in myself to like, no, I don't need to tolerate that actually. I can have firm boundaries and I don't need to let people treat me with disrespect or hurt me because I don't deserve that. I'm worthy of love as it is. I don't deserve that. I would let women do that to me. And sitting back, it's almost comical. I'm like, what a fucking idiot. Like, why would you do that? That's so dumb. That's so dumb. That's so dumb. But I mean, it's so common. It's so common. Your nervous system is always going to know. The body is always ahead of the mind. You know, you can really, it's not just in relationships, but you can believe that you're healing while your nervous system remains braced and vigilant and just exhausted and constantly on edge and stressed. I think just hyper self-reflection and like putting your nervous system like on interrogation, it keeps the body in a subtle threat response. Like I must monitor myself to stay safe because who am I without these practices? Oh man, I'm a fucking disaster. So we tell ourselves, again, not on a conscious level, but we do this subconsciously. And again, like for the people like myself who learned that love was conditional, that I needed to perform to a certain standard. And again, this wasn't like taught to me consciously. It's just like what I learned through experience that it like love is conditional. Stillness was unsafe. Like I had to act. I had to show up. I had to bleed, right? Resting felt like exposure. You know, I didn't think I deserved to be at peace, which is crazy because I'd sit and talk about it, but then not live it. It's very easy to intellectualize these things. And I think this is why many people unconsciously sabotage themselves when things are going good or when they're calm. You know, it's like our nervous system doesn't trust safety because we've never really learned it. We don't believe we're worthy of it. You know, any nervous system in our body, if it's raised on this type of performance and condition, it's going to interpret that rest as danger. It's why we get into this self-help trap because we have to perform. We have to show up. We can't possibly be whole as it is. We gotta meet a standard. And the standard is impossible. There is no perfection. The beauty of humanity is the imperfections that make us. That's the truth of it. So when you slow down, I really like think about this and feel it. Let's slow down for a minute here. Let's pause for a minute. Take a breath. Don't need to close your eyes or anything. Just be present of what's around you. What sensation arises first? Relief or anxiety? Notice it. Be honest, right? Maybe there's a subtle anxiety, maybe general peace, but maybe there's a little anxiousness there. Where's that coming from? Right? And it's important to monitor that stuff because if that subtle anxiety is there the second you slow down, what do you think it is that's driving your whole day? Right. And I still notice it within myself. I still have those subtle levels of anxiety once in a while. It doesn't help that I blast caffeine throughout the day necessarily. Like if I'm being totally honest, 400 milligrams of caffeine pre-workout first thing in the morning probably don't help me, but I practice enough meditation and stillness and calm that like I generally think I got a good grasp on things. Like me slowing down right now, pausing, I do feel a sense of calm and I feel a sense of peace, right? And this is something I practice for myself. And I'll know, and if it's anxiety, I'll notice it. I'll be like, oh, okay, where's that coming from? Where's this? Those are the type of internal dialogues that we should be having. It's not about needing to perform. It's not about needing to meet some standard. It's about where am I at? How am I doing? How am I feeling? And just being honest. Honesty is key here. You know, what is it that taught you that, or who is it that taught you that effort equates to worth? Maybe it's a childhood wound, maybe it's a relationship. What is it that taught you that? And what can you do to get rid of that? Personally, again, I'd recommend subliminal affirmations. Subliminal affirmations have been so huge for me the last several months in changing the way I think about myself. I was trying to explain it. I was explaining it to my mom the other day. And I was trying to get the point across like it hasn't changed who I am. I'm still very much who I am, but the way I'm thinking is much different. So and that's why I'm making them because I've noticed such a difference for myself. And there's certain concepts actually that I'm like, I want a subliminal affirmation on that, and I can't find one. Well, let me go fucking make one. Like, you know what I mean? That's the type of stuff that I think we're meant to do. If we feel like we need something or we want something, well, and we can't find it, well, then let's create it. So that's kind of why I did one. And I was like, that was pretty cool. I like doing that. And it was pretty easy actually. It took me like 45 minutes. So that's why I'm putting them up. So if you ever have recommendations on that, or you want other like recommendations for other creators, by all means, hit me up because you got to be careful on how you're programming your mind. You just don't want to do a subliminal affirmation and it's telling you all sorts of nasty shit. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what it could be saying. So find the creators that you trust. If you're sitting here listening to this, I hope you maybe trust me enough to do them. But again, you don't have to trust me. I don't know. I don't trust most people either. I got trust issues, as they say. My trust issue is that I trust people too much. Honestly, I trust people way too much. Like I'd say I'm pretty gullible in the sense that like I'll let motherfuckers burn me. Like, but it's because I believe in the goodness of people. You know, maybe I shouldn't sometimes, but I notice the red flags when they're there. It's the red flags that come out of nowhere, or the small thing that I ignored that comes back to bite me nowadays. That's what it is. So, hey, if you're a trusting person like me, generally it leads to good things, but sometimes you get burned. Is what it is. I'm not going to be upset about myself for trusting. I think trust is a beautiful thing. And the fact that I can walk through life and trust life to take care of me and trust the people around me, even if it burns me once in a while, it's better than living on edge, you know? I don't want to have to go through life on edge or feeling like I can't trust my surroundings. Because if it got bad enough, I would just remove myself from the situation. If I can't trust anybody or anything around me, is that a me thing? Let me take a step back. If it's not a me thing, well, then I got to remove myself from the environment or person, whatever it may be. I try and take responsibility first. So, and I wasn't always like that. So some, that's been part of the natural growth and the progression that's taken place. Right. I didn't learn that from a self-help book. I don't think a self-help book could have taught me that. I had to sit with myself and look at my own patterns and look at my own thoughts and my own perceptions and be like, all right, is it me? That should always be your first question. Is it me? There's a good chance it is. 90% of the time it's going to be. Now, I will say it's very vindicating when it's not you. It feels fucking great when like some shit happens and you ask that question and you're like, it really wasn't me. Huh. I'm a good person. You know? Like that is the greatest feeling when you can like kind of accept a situation because you realize you did all you could and you were actually really good on your boundaries and you were really firm in what you were believing in and you stood up for yourself. Like there is no better feeling when you can actually internally accept that and be at peace with that. So I would encourage you to look at your whatever situation is challenging you. Are you really the problem here? You might not be. If you're dealing with a lot of self-blame and self-shame, there's a good chance that you did everything that you could. And I feel called to say this because I think there's going to be one person in that situation. If it doesn't apply to you, it is what it is. But I really do think there's going to be one person in that situation. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying it. You probably did all you could. Take some solace in that. Don't beat yourself up. Sometimes it just is what it is. So let's move on, shall we? Don't mind me. I'm drinking my protein drink. I'm at about 200 grams of protein a day. We're killing it today. Good work on them on the gains. But let's kind of dive into the self-help marketplace a little bit. I think this is important to talk about too. I kind of talked about it being a commodity and the incentive to keep people in this state of dissonance. I don't think this is some conspiracy. Personally, I think it is a financially rooted incentive structure, right? And if you look at the economics on a global scale, it's not a conspiracy how the things operate. It's an incentive driven, profit driven world in an economic fashion. And self-help and spirituality, while they tend to be talked about as being rooted in something other than that, you got to realize they're not. They're not. It is a profit driven business. And that's a rude wake up call. When I realized that, was a rude wake up call. It's like, what the fuck? These guys just want my money? Like, even somebody like Ram Dass, for example. Right? I love Ram Dass. I'm not speaking negatively on Ram Dass. But let's look at what Ram Dass's net worth was right now, just out of curiosity. And I'm not sitting here, don't go make your money. Don't go do your thing here. But you got to recognize these people who are selling you shit net worth. It's not even on it's literally not even in the search engine. People don't care to know what Ram Dass's net worth was. Probably isn't very talked about online. Ram Dass had an estimated net worth of approximately $10 million. All right. And again, I'm not shaming Ram Dass for having 10 million. Good for him. Like bankrolling. I'd love to be making 10 million off of what I'm doing. I'm not gonna lie to you. That'd be fucking sweet. However, what you got to recognize, this is an incentive for profit drive from a lot of these people. And there are going to be a lot of coaches. There are going to be a lot of programs that are designed to make money. That they're there to make money. Now, it's almost contradictory that I'm saying this is people's intentions. I don't think it's necessarily their intentions, but what you got to recognize, a lot of the industries, and I work in the mental health field, right? My biggest critique of the mental health field is that I feel like one of the goals is not to fully heal people, it's to keep people coming, right? You need clients in order to succeed. Well, let's say you heal X, Y, and Z. You lost those clients. They're not your clients anymore, right? So anybody who is doing, especially doing it independently, they're not necessarily incentivized to see you heal unless they genuinely are not offering, like, unless they are genuinely not rooted in the profit driven model. Now, it takes a lot of self reflection, it takes a lot of discernment to recognize if somebody's keeping you on a hook and dangling a carrot. Only you're gonna know. I couldn't sit here. You couldn't. There's certain big time gurus I would look at and say that's probably what they're doing. I'm not gonna call out names. I'm not saying Ram Dass was doing that. I actually don't think Ram Dass was doing that. I was just using him as an example. These people make some money. Like Ram Dass 10 million, he's rolling in the dough. I mean, he's rolling in the grave, but he was rolling in the dough, right? So you gotta recognize this is for profit. This is for profit. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. I'm looking at you, Aubrey Marcus. I can't believe I just said that. I wasn't going to use names, but I can't. All right, is what it is. There's a lot of people just looking to make money off of the spirituality, off of their inflated egos, off of their spiritually narcissistic identity, right? So use your discernment. The subtle messaging, this is what you got to look out for. When you're going to any sort of self-help, you're going to any sort of coach, you're going to any sort of person. You're close, but you're not there yet. Anybody who tells you that you are not there yet, do not listen to them. Anybody tells you who you need to heal more, do not listen to them. Right? Maybe there's healing work that can be done, but if they are reinforcing a subconscious belief that you are not worthy here now, already a beacon, a pillar of unconditional love, do not, do not work with them. And they might not even be doing that consciously. All right. So if you are a practitioner, you got to be asking yourself these questions because you might be creating the problem. You've done a lot of work, but you're not there yet. Who are you to say that to somebody? Where are you trying to take them? Are they not worthy, whole in front of you right now? Are you really telling a person they are not whole in their radiance? Maybe they got a lot of trauma. Maybe they got a lot of self-belief that is negative. They got a low self-esteem. But I would never tell somebody I work with that they are not there yet. No, never, never. One of the things you got to look for, there's always some sort of modality or upgrade or breakthrough that you can go to reach this phase of enlightenment. No, we are worthy right here, right now, baby. Right here. And if you're listening to this and you got people telling you otherwise, they are wrong. If you can sit and you can feel love in your heart and you can feel a sense of radiance and you can look at the world and you can see beauty and you can see joy, how is that not enough? How are you not already complete? How are you not already divine? So any practitioner, any person, any system that is telling you otherwise is a fraud. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. Sure, you could do more work. You could heal more. Like we always can. We can always grow, but again, it is a natural progression. But the most profitable wound is the one that almost heals. Almost heals. It's not the one that heals. It's not the one that doesn't heal. The most profitable wound is the one that almost heals. And it's because, oh, we can heal just a little bit more. Oh, look how deep this wound is. Like, are you kidding me? So you got to ask yourself, which practices genuinely nourish you, like genuinely fill up your soul, and which ones keep you chasing? If you got practices in your life that keep you chasing, you got to let them go. You got to let them go. And what would you stop buying or what would you stop consuming? What content would you stop listening to if you actually trusted your own wholeness? And you could tell me this show, and I'd say, cool, turn it off. Like, don't listen to it then. Like, if you think I'm making you chase your wholeness, turn it off. I don't want you to be consuming shit like that. That makes you feel like that. You shouldn't be. So, and I'm real enough to like, if I'm doing that, I'll tell you if that's what you're getting from it, point blank, it's not for you. You shouldn't be listening to it then. You need to be doing something else that's going to nourish your soul. So, but because I tell you that, I tend to think maybe I wouldn't do that. But if I ever feel like I'm doing, if any of y'all listening ever feel like I'm doing that, please tell me, because maybe I got a blind spot that I need to work on. I don't know. I'm not perfect. I told you. Because look at a lot of this shadow work, a lot of this inner work, like it kind of gives us an ego boost. Like if we can sit and we can say, "Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm healing." Real growth does not feel very climactic to the ego. It's actually very anticlimactic. Like there's nothing to brag about. It doesn't come with fireworks. It's very quiet. It's very still. It is less inner conversations, believe it or not. It is less identity around being deep or evolved or spiritual. You really stop giving a shit, to be honest. You like, yeah, I'm pretty spiritual, but what the fuck does that mean? We're all spiritual. Spirituality is an essence of who we are. So of course I'm spiritual. Like, duh. Like, duh, obviously. Like, so it's really not even that deep, right? You don't have to define yourself. Like, this is what real growth is. You don't have to define yourself. There is no urgency to fix because there is no problem. You are not broken. Like, as things come up, I will address them. But what do I got to fix? Like, realistically, I could change certain ways that I think, and I could address like as it's coming up, as I notice these things. I'm sure I could like notice a few things about my own life that I could point out and like quote unquote fix. But who I am who I am, and I'm willing to change and grow as it naturally happens, as it comes into my awareness. But who I am is I'm a being that is worthy of love, that is self-accepting and embraces the beauty of life. It's as simple as that. I have a lot of tolerance for ambiguity. I don't really give a shit to define most things. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I can be very present in ordinary moments because ordinary moments are beautiful. There's beauty all around me. Like, look at all the fucking beauty. And this moment is so ordinary, isn't it? Every moment is extraordinary if you allow it to be. It's just extra ordinary. Play with the word. Extraordinary. It's more ordinary when it's extraordinary. How about that? Unbelievable. I've never even played with that word before, and it just popped into my awareness. That is hilarious. I'm such a, I get silly sometimes. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Um, but really, true growth matures from this need to become somebody. And what's interesting, I just titled my poetry book Seasons of Becoming because I became me, right? I became me after all this work. So I'm really contradicting myself. And I can recognize and look back and see how I played into these ideas too in a lot of ways. And that's all right. I don't hold any shame. I don't hold any grudge. I don't like it to myself. Maybe I'll look back and be like, damn, you were a dumb motherfucker sometimes, but that's all right. We all are. It's cool. I don't need to worry about it. So it's less about becoming and it's more about inhabiting and who we are and embracing and embodying. It isn't about becoming somebody. You should just be yourself, inhabit yourself. And it's so cliche, but the cliche is true because it's true. That's why it's cliche. That's why people are like, that's such bullshit. Well, it's just because you haven't done it. Because you are seeking to become instead of inhabit. You know, I think real maturity, and this is what I've recognized for myself. Like I'm 30 years old now, and I'm like, damn, my age is getting a little serious, right? And I'll have some older listeners be like, shut the fuck up, dude. You're only 30. 30's the new 20, and I think it is. But what I'm saying here is that with maturing a bit, and if you listen to the show regularly enough, you realize this motherfucker is silly. He's not really that mature. He's silly. Um, Maturity, it isn't like the absence of wounds. It's really just the absence of urgency around them. I have plenty of wounds. I have plenty of scars. I hurt sometimes. I really do. There's a lot of people who have fucked me over and wronged me. And I'm still not fully over it. But that's all right. I don't need to do anything about it. It is what it is. Those wounds soften over time, and I'm sure I'll get more wounds. That's part of life. It's part of life. You fall and scrape your knee sometimes. You fall off a ladder and break your back sometimes. The wounds are more severe once in a while. They're really going to sting. But that's all right. That's part of life. There doesn't need to be like an urgency around them when you have them. Maybe there's some critical care that's needed right when they happen. Certainly. But once you kind of return to balance a little bit, it's like, all right, let's address it as we need to. It's like going to physical therapy. All right, let's do the work. Let's do the work. And maybe you got to make some adjustments in your day to day as a wound comes up and you get a new sense of awareness. But you don't lose who you are. You don't lose who you are, and it doesn't change the idea that life is not fucking beautiful. Of course, it still is, even through the wounds, even through the pain, right? It's still a fucking gift. It's still beautiful. So honestly, just ask yourself, it's a very simple question. Does your growth make your life feel simpler, or does it make it more complex? If it makes it more complex, then that's probably not the right kind of inner work you should be doing. It really should be simplified. It really should be pretty relaxing to do most of your inner work and to find peace within yourself, because that's really what it's all about. Coming to a greater sense of peace and understanding. We don't need this urgent, like, the walls are on fire. Like, if the walls are on fire, like, call the fire department, bro. Like, they'll put it out for you. It's all right. Like, all right, address the crisis as it's there, but your house was on fire 3 weeks ago and the structure's still standing. All right, yeah, you got to clean up the damage a little bit. We'll work on that. But are you going to live in a damaged house forever? Really? That don't sound very smart. And another thing, presence, not self-awareness. There's a big difference between presence and self-awareness. So ask again, do your practices increase presence or do they increase self-awareness? Are you truly embodied or are you just intellectualizing? Any type of practice that you're doing, again, reflect, think about it. So I really think the point that I'm trying to get across is that we need to end the chase. We don't need to be chasing anything. We don't be chasing women. We don't be chasing money. We don't be chasing ourselves. We allow it to come to us. Growth, maturation, healing. There is no chase. Growth doesn't end. The belief that you are somehow unfinished or unworthy or broken does. And once you end that belief, the real growth begins. When the addiction of self-help and the need to grow loosens its hold on you, it's really interesting what happens, because you still evolve, but it's without this story of somehow you are deficient or that you are unworthy, and that you're evolving is because you are not worthy of whatever the fuck it is. Right? Growth is just a byproduct of living and embracing the present moment and putting yourself out there and having experiences. It is not, growth is like, the need to grow is not a justification for withholding love, right? You really need to stop like asking how it is that you fix yourself. And you got to start asking, how do I relate to what is already present, to what is already here? That can be externally and internally. You weren't meant to arrive in this life perfected. You were meant to arrive present and grounded so you can recognize the imperfections and relish in their fucking beauty. The moment you stop trying to become enough is the moment growth no longer actually controls you and you realize you already were enough. And if you already knew you were enough, how would you live life differently right now? What would you do differently tomorrow? How would your routines change? Right? So what I'm going to invite you to do, because we're at the conclusion of this episode, I pretty much made every point that I need to make. What I'm going to invite you to do, sit in silence. Don't journal. There's no action step. There is no go do this. I'm not even going to give you my ad lib. You already heard it at the beginning. You already know what I offer. Sit in silence. Sit with yourself. Just notice yourself. That's what I'm going to do as soon as I hop off of this. No headphones, no music, no nothing. Just in silence, just in the present moment. Sit with yourself and see what comes up. And whatever time that you initially think you should do it for, and whatever time you're in that silent moment and you have the urge to stop, double whatever time you just did. The brain stops at about 40%, whether it's physical or mental. Go the whole 9 yards. Sit in the presence, sit in the silence, embrace it. There's nothing you need to write about it based on this. There's nothing you need to do. There's no book you need to go to. Nothing you need to integrate except yourself in the present moment. Go and watch your breath, and I'll see you on the next episode.